Shabbat Shalom and Hag Sameach, everyone. Happy Shavuot. It's wonderful to have all of you with us here in the sanctuary, and welcome to all of you who are watching from where you are, at home or on your way. It's great to have you with us as well. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger, and as always, I'm joined on the bima, our soloist, Allison Rosoff, and down at the piano, Joy Katzen-Guthrie. This is, in addition to the 70th anniversary of the Queen and all those festivities, there's another important thing to mark. On June 3rd, 1972, 50 years ago, the first female rabbi in North America, whose name is Sally Priesand, was ordained at Hebrew Union College. So it's the 50th anniversary to the day for that. And just in case you're wondering how many female Reform rabbis there are at this point in 2022, there are 816 female Reform rabbis.
Amazing.
It would be a lot to get them all in one place, for sure. So tonight we're going to be celebrating the festival of Shavuot, the festival of weeks, and we'll begin as we do on the festivals by singing Hag Sameach, Happy Holiday. Hag Sameach, yai la la la, ya la la. Hag Sameach, yai la la la, ya la la. Hag Sameach, yai la la la, ya la la. Hag Sameach, yai la la la, ya la la. Shiru, sing. Shiru, 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 shiru. Hag Sameach, yai la la la, ya la la. Shiru, 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 shiru. Hag Sameach, yai la la la, ya la la. Shiru, 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 Hag Sameach, yai la la la, ya la la. Shiru, 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 Hag Sameach, yai la la la, ya la la. Hag Sameach, yai la la la, ya la la. Hag Sameach, yai la la la, la la la. And we'll continue singing Light These Lights as we prepare to light the Shabbat and Yom Tov festival lights.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
And right on the screen, you'll find the blessing for the Shabbat and Yom Tov candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu
This moment, we'll sing the words of the Shechianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehekianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Praise you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, for giving us life, sustaining us, and allowing us to reach this season. Jewish tradition invites us to recite at least 100 blessings a day. It seems like a pretty large amount, maybe even impossible to achieve, but if we stop throughout the day, giving thanks for the wonder of the things we see, blessings for food, for nature, for spiritual moments, it's possible that we might find ourselves reciting even more. As we well know in Judaism, there are blessings for just about everything. Some have been with us for 1,000 years or more, while others are much more modern. This includes how we celebrate lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Pride Month in June. Like Abraham and Sarah, we need to practice radical hospitality, meaning we need to open the doors of our community and synagogue-wide to embrace all of our brothers and sisters and transgender kin. And let us also remember that although everyone is different and unique, we all share sparks of God's holiness. And we all have the ability to share kindness, compassion, and understanding. So here for a modern blessing, praise are you, Adonai, our God, who rules the universe by diversifying creation. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam mishaneh habriot. And we'll continue with a prayer for Ukraine, as we've reached 100 days of this seemingly unending war and humanitarian crisis. We hope and pray that that region will soon know peace, and that God will spread over all of those who are continuing to fight for Ukraine's independence, keep them and their families and loved ones protected and safe. And let us all do our part, help to build a just, loving, and generous, life-sustaining world, as we say together, Amen. Back in the prayer book, or right on the screen, on page 13, you'll find the words to Yismechu, let the heavens rejoice, and the earth exult, this arrangement by Craig Taubman. Yamamai mai mamai, yamamai mai mamai, yamamai mai mamai mai 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 mai, yamamai mai mamai, yamamai mai mamai, yamamai mai mamai mai 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 mai, yismechu hashamai, itagel haaretz, yiram hayam, umelo. Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam, umelo. Yamamai mai mamai, yamamai mai mamai, yamamai mai mamai mai 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 mai. Yamamai mai mamai, yamamai mai mamai, yamamai mai mamai mai 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 mai. Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam, continue now with our Shabbat song, Shalom Aleichem, on page 24, the ministering angels and messengers of our lives.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Malachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu Mi L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedchem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We'll continue with the Chatzi or half Kaddish, making our way to Shema and its blessings.
Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
Bilma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, mechayechon uvyomechon, uvchayedu kol beit Yisrael, bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, v'imaru amen. Yeshmei Rabbah mevarach, le'olam u'lamei amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yipa'ar, v'yiromam, v'yitnasei, v'yithadar, v'yitale, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha brichu, le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata, Dush bechata v'nechemata, damiram be'ama, v'yimaru amen.
Let's rise for the Baruch Hu, our call to prayer, found on page 28. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai, Hamevorach. Baruch Hu et Adonai, Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach, le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach, le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Feel free to join me with a prayer for creation on 31, Ma'ariv Aravim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Haravim. And on 33 words of love, Ahavat Olam. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. The more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works in the living language which gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Amo Yisrael. We'll open up our eyes. We prepare to sing the Shema.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes.
Open up our eyes.
Teach us how to live.
Teach us how to live.
Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. And we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malachuto Leolam Vaed.
Feel free to be seated and join us as we chant the words of the V'ahavta, you shall love, on page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavcha ayom al levavecha vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha uvlechtecha v'derech u'shokmecha u'fumecha Ukshartam le'ot al yadecha, ve'hayu letotachot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru, vasitem ekol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim le'elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher Otzeiti Etchem Me'aretz Mitzrayim Liot Lachem Le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohim. Let's read together on 39, Words of Truth and Faith. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we are taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land. The winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. And in honor of Shavuot, we have a unique and special melody for our song of freedom. Mi hamocha lim Adonai, mi hamocha nedar b'kodesh, Torah tehilot Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Mi hamocha elim Adonai. Mi hamocha nedar b'kodesh. Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Now we'll sing Steve Dropkin's arrangement of Hashkivenu, found on page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu le'shalom Ne'amideinu shumreinu le'chaim Hashkivenu Slain Adonai, Aporei Sukkot Shalom, Aleinu v'yokomo Israel, ve'al Yerushalayim. Amen.
Let's continue now with our standing prayers, which begin on page 46. Adonai, open up our lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach, ufi agita hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'chonei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imot, U'mevig Ula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ava, Melech Ozer, U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Le'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol, Atah Rav Le'Hoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechachel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Nofim Ve'rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umechayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidom Melach, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'nemanata Lekachayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol.
Ata kadosh v'shim hakadosh, ukadoshim b'chol yom yalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Feel free to be seated. Continue with the intermediate blessings of the tefillah, beginning with Shabbat, called Kedushat Hayom, the holiness of this day. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. And during the Chagim, during the three festivals of the calendar year, it's appropriate to add a special prayer called Yaleh V'Yavo. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Yaleh V'Yavo v'Yizacher Zichronenu. Our God and God of our ancestors, be mindful of your people Israel and recall our merit for good and grace and loving kindness and compassion for life and peace on this festival of Shavuot, weeks, which is connected to the Torah. Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu bo letova, ufokdenu vo livracha, v'hoshienu vo lechayim, which means this day remember us for well-being. This day, bless us with your nearness, and this day, help us live a fuller life. Continuing to page 56, you'll find a prayer called Avodah. Let our eyes behold God's loving return to Zion. Blessed are you, whose presence returns to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai, hamachazir shechinato l'tzion. And on the following page, page 59, words and prayers of goodness and thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulcha na'eh lechodot. And for our time of reflection and meditation, Allison will lead us in the singing of Shalom Rav, grant abundant peace.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'yinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol heit u'b'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Turning to words of healing and strength, you'll find Misha Berach, prayer of healing on page 253. As we think of individuals in our community and beyond, those recovering from violence and war, as well as those who are ill and in need of healing. We think especially of Laura Barnett, George Barnett, Yonatan Reuven Ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Babs Brown, Manuel Cruz, Eddie Deerfield, Evelyn Edelman, Rob Edelman, Corrine Fairfield, Judith Fairfield, Joan Felser, Brad Fischelo, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Leah Gottlieb, Nick Martin, Arnold Miller, Melissa Miller, William Miller, Alfred Mortelli, Rita Pizer, Michael Ranzino, Rabbi Avram Reifer, Abby Richmond, Stephanie Ross, Dennis Schulman, Cyril Shagrin, Jeff Stark, John Walsh, and Sharon Worster. If there are any other names you'd like to add, either aloud or privately, feel free to do so at this time.
My father, George Stark.
Thank you.
Misheberach Avotenu Mikor habracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mikor habracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Goldie and Stan Levy recently won $5 million in the lottery. They were pretty excited with their newfound windfall, so they said to each other, it's time to start living the high life. So they bought a nice home and surrounded themselves with lovely furnishings and some art, and they decided to hire a butler. So after a lot of searching, they finally found someone fit for the job, and that very evening, the Levies instructed him to set the dinner table for 4 because they were inviting their friends over, the Cohens, for the Shavuot festival meal. But just before the Cohens were set to arrive, Goldie and Stan looked at each other and they were puzzled. Why was the dinner table set for 6 instead of 4? When they asked the butler why he made such a simple mistake, he replied, the Cohens called just now. They said they were bringing over the blintzes. It's a good dairy joke. I'm sure some of you have heard it before. Took a little time there, but you got it. That's it. Shavuot, it goes by many names. It's our holiday of Torah. It's called Yom HaBikurim, the festival of the first fruits. Others call it Chag HaKatzir, the festival of the harvest. Some call it Zman Matan Toratenu, which is a fancy phrase meaning the time that the Torah was given to us. And for those partial to brevity, if you don't like Shavuot, you can just call it Atzeret, which means a gathering. Finally, for those who are lactose intolerant, it's a festival that reminds us to stay away from any foods made with dairy, like the cheesecakes and the blintzes that many people enjoy at meals and at Onyx. We're going to have some of those after the service. So why doesn't this festival, 1 out of the 3, involve meat like the other ones do? Well, there are at least 3 reasons. 1, the experience of receiving Torah at Mount Sinai was probably spiritually intense. So it tired the Israelites out, and they didn't have the time and energy to go out, find an animal, slaughter it, and kosher it with salt. 2, the Torah, like the land of Israel, is also likened to milk and honey, both sweet and nourishing. And 3, some people believe that eating meat would remind us of the golden calf incident, which led to the subsequent breaking of the first set of tablets that Moses brought down the mountain. Just three of many reasons. Once upon a time, Shavuot was intimately connected with agriculture, the harvest of the land, and making pilgrimage to the temple in Jerusalem, the holy city of Jerusalem. But after that ship sailed close to 2,000 years ago, the rabbis knew they needed to pivot and fast. Now we focus the experience on Mount Sinai. Of course, no one really knows what happened there. God might have dictated the entire Torah there, all 8,769 words. Perhaps God's finger, as it were, lazed the words of the Ten Commandments right into the twin tablets. Even the Torah narrative itself includes different versions of what actually happened. Some people even think that God didn't write or say anything at all. Rather, God inspired Moses to write down the entire thing. It's pretty remarkable that Jewish tradition not only tolerates, but actually welcomes all of these various interpretations. You might think, and it would be logical, that God's revelation would lend itself to a single storyline. Then again, we're dealing with Jews, a people, a people whose very name, Yisrael, means those who wrestle with the divine, and to a certain extent, spirituality. Indeed, there's a commentary or midrash devoted to this very topic, what happened at Sinai. It speaks about several Jews, 5 actually, who are arguing about what actually happened there, at least in their personal opinion. The first one says, God definitely wrote down the entire Torah, while the second one said, no, God just shared the 10 Commandments. A third person recalled a Talmudic legend that God only gave the first 2 commandments at Sinai. I am Adonai, your God, and don't have any other gods but me. And a fourth person said God only shared the very first commandment with the Israelites. And not to be outdone, the fifth one chimed in, you've got it all wrong. God only shared a single word of the first commandment, Anochi, which simply means I. In the end, all 5 of them agreed that if God only shared a single word, it probably would have been Anochi, or I, because it affirms the importance of self. Now, Rabbi Mendel Torum of Rymanov, a small town in Poland, about 180 kilometers from Krakow, he had overheard this entire argument, and his response stunned them all. All God really said was the first letter of the first word of the first utterance, Aleph. Now, when kids, or adults for that matter, learn Hebrew, they're taught that the Aleph doesn't have a sound. It's silent. But perhaps later on, they'll learn that Aleph is actually a guttural sound, meaning there is something there. Rabbi Lawrence Kushner, a modern storyteller and sage, likens it to someone opening up their mouth and starting to make a sound, then suddenly stopping. This, he says, is the sound of the Aleph. He goes on to relate that perhaps all the Israelites needed to hear was the almost inaudible sound of the Aleph, because it meant that God and the Jewish people could engage in conversation. The revelation at Sinai, however it actually happened, was the true purpose of the Exodus, despite the 13 or so additional reasons listed in the full version of the Passover song, Dayenu. It would have been enough. And the connection between Shavuot and the Torah, codified in the 2nd century, recalls one of the greatest epiphanies in the history of religion. There are some really unique customs associated with this festival. There are Jews who decorate their homes with branches, greens, and flowers. Some congregations, and this is really interesting, I don't think Alex would like it, spread grass on the floor of the sanctuary because there's a commentary that actually says that when the Israelites received the Torah, they were standing on grass. Now, I've actually traveled to Mount Sinai in Egypt. Over there, it's called Jabal Musa, or Moses Mountain. It's a beautiful mountain and quite striking. A craggy peak and a pretty moderate hike that usually begins in the pre-dawn hours in order to enjoy sunrise at the summit. But I can tell you this, there's not a single blade of grass there. Over the years, I've learned that some synagogues have given out sweet-smelling herbs during Shavuot services, and that many would actually weave a crown of flowers and branches to place over the Torah, connecting Torah, our Eitz Chaim, or tree of life, to the beauty and bounty of spring. But when it comes to interpreting the meaning of Torah, each of us understands its words in a different way, just as countless sages have offered their own personal opinions. And while one understanding may be quite different from the next, it's said that this type of argument is l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Or, to put it another way, it's an argument for God's sake. The Torah has always been complex reading. So much so, even Moses didn't understand it all. There's this story about Moses ascending the mountain only to find God adding some final touches and flourishes to the tops of some of the letters. Intrigued, Moses asked God, "So new, what are you doing there? I thought you had a finished product. Why are you adding those little crowns on some of the letters?" Well, God answered, sometime hundreds of years from now, students and teachers will see in these little crowns all sorts of wonderful laws and enchanting stories. Moses said, "Well, can I see them?" God answers, "Just turn around." And Moses suddenly finds himself in a classroom where teachers are studying the Torah, wrapped in God's version of an invisibility quote. Moses heads to the back of class and takes a seat. But Moses couldn't understand a word of what they were talking about. After a few minutes, one of the students asks the teacher about a particular passage, and the teacher replies, sometimes we don't know exactly what the words mean, but we study them anyway to remember everything that Moses taught us." Hearing this, Moses felt humbled and proud. Then he looked to God and said, "These students and their teachers are so wise, yet you chose me to deliver the Torah." After pausing for a moment, God says, "Not even you, Moses, can understand everything and all the mysteries in the Torah." The festival of Shavuot teaches us that every single generation will find new meanings in the text, and that these teachings can and will help us to become better people. It also shares the message that everyone was present at Sinai, not just the Israelites back then, but all of us. Not a single soul was excluded. Elders, adults, kids, biblical priests, women, people with disabilities, and those of every race, color, and sexual orientation, all were present there. As the world celebrates Pride Month in June, let us imagine the millions of people who stood together during that moment. Liberal Jews and Orthodox Jews standing next to cultural Jews, maybe even gastronomical Jews, LGBTQ Jews, and of course, Jews by choice. Individuals and families of every size, shape, and configuration, all huddled together beneath a giant talit, or prayer shawl. Whatever was experienced that day, whether it was the sound of a single aleph or the whole Torah from aleph to taf, from beginning to end, I'm sure there was singing, joy, and dancing. And perhaps even the sunlight broke through the clouds. At least that's the way I like to imagine it. Perhaps you can find inspiration from that moment too, because everything we learn and everything we are as a community of faith comes from the Torah. Turn it and turn it, Rabbi Ben Bagbag said long ago, because every single thing you need to know is found within it. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. Happy Shavuot. Now, technically, Shavuot actually begins tomorrow evening. We're celebrating it, though, on this Shabbat. This still means that we need to count the Omer. This is the final day, the 49th day, which is 7 weeks of the Omer. You can find the meditation there, also on page 278 of your prayer books, Mishkan Tefillah, dwelling place of prayer. And if you'd like to join me, feel free. Hinani muchan umzuman lekayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat ha'omer. I'm ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer. And here's the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom tisha v'arbi'im yom shehem shiva shavuot la Omer. The very last day of the Omer, meaning that Shavuot will be on the 50th day. We're going to continue now with the words of Aleinu, the adoration, which you can find on page 282 and 287. Please rise as the ark is opened.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Feel free to be seated. We'll now continue with our service of Yizchor, our service of memory and remembrance. This version is of Mishkan Tefillah is just Shabbat. Just so you know, there is a companion volume, which is festivals and holidays. You can buy them separately, but there's also one that you can buy. It's about a good 3/4 of an inch thicker and a little bit heavier, that has the words of the Yizkor service. Thanks to the wonders of technology, I have placed them on the screen before us, and we'll begin by listening to the beautiful words of Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd."
Adonai roi lo exar bino de she'aritzini al mei menuchot al mei menuchot Nafshi shovev, yishovev, yanecheni b'maklei tzedek, yanecheni b'maklei tzedek, V'man shemo Gam ki eilech begeit mavet lo ira ki ata imadi Shivtecha umishantecha heimai nachamuni Tarok lefanai Shulchan neged sorirai Nishanta vashim en roshi kosi
Please join me in the translation. With God as my shepherd, I shall not want. The Eternal makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, restores my soul, guides me in straight path for the sake of God's name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Eternal forever. Our loved ones live in our broken hearts, and at times that brings some measure of healing. Their acts of kindness and generosity are the inheritance they leave behind. We feel their absence, but the beauty of their lives abides among us, As it is said, the name of the one who has died shall not disappear. Our loved ones' names and their memories will endure among us, and these are the names, our lips, and in our hearts. For Yizkor Memorial, we recall individuals who have died during the past calendar year, as we remember Shirley Abelson, Raina Abrahams, Phyllis Allman, Richard Baker, Irving Barron, Betty Bressoff, Joel Brettschneider, Marcy Bunn, Stanley Kaplan, Lisa Cargile, Pablo Carreño, David Curtis, Barbara Danis, Harold Eisner, Jeffrey Garfield, Tolby Golger, David Gordon, Gerald Gottlieb, William R. Groom, Paula Hickey, Larry Hills, Daniel Ippolito, Larry Irwin, Bertha Katz, Myrna Klein, Paul Joseph Landis, Robert Lapin, Elaine Lapin, Sally Levy, May Lipinski, Julie A. Manning, Barbara Martini, Sister Marjorie O'Day, Bella Uziel, Jean Patrick, Wesley Reeves, Arlene Sanders, Amanda Say, Harvey Sussman, and Margaret Witchman. We now rise for our memorial prayer called El Malay Rachamim, God full of compassion.
El Malay Rachamim, Shochem Amromim, Amitzei Mechona Nechona, Techachan Ve'ashrina, Im Grushim Tehorim, Gizor Geyam Asirim, Lenishmut Yakirenu Shechalhu Leolamim, Malarachamim Yastiriu Bisitek Nafav Leolamim, Vitrol Chaim et Nishmatam, Adonai Nachalatam, V'yanuach b'shalom Mishkavam, V'nomar Amen.
Merciful God, God Most High, let there be perfect rest for the souls of our loved ones who have gone into eternity. May they find refuge and shelter in your presence among the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold them close to you forever. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May they find a home in you, and may they rest in peace as we say, Amen.
Amen.
Feel free to be seated. We now remember individuals who have died within the past 30 days, whose families are observing Shloshim. We remember fondly Barbara Martini, mother of Kathy Nadelson, Arlene Sanders, aunt of Steve Lipinski, and May Lipinski, mother of Steve Lipinski. We also mark the yahrzeit anniversary of death of loved ones. On this Shabbat, we remember Jack Altman, Herbert Brown, Ruben Castillo, Rosa Cohn, Scott Deerfield, Belle Deutsch, Jack J. Gordon, Jacob Gottesman, Richard Grammatica, Michael Greenbaum, Betty Lou Greiner, Fega Sarah Gritzhandler Herbstein, Abraham Jacobs, Arnold Jacobs, Beverly Lasser, Sarah Levin, Abe Lipman, Karina Majar, Florence Packler, Audrey Pyenson, Lori Riddell, Austin Rothbart, Ruth C. Rubens, Stanley Charlotte, Martha Stessel, Theodore Streuman, Stanley Tamber, Beatrice Unger, Rose Watchell, Herman Weiss, and Barry Sander. Are there any other names to add for Yahrzeit? We say Zichronam Livracha. May the memories of these good people continue to be a source of blessing and love in our lives as we rise together, turning to the words of Mourner's Kaddish, Kaddish Tome, also found on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayedecho beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam ulamei almayah, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei nekudasha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'imramav, hu yasei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and throughout the world. As we say, amen.
V'imiru, 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 amen. V'imiru, 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 amen.
Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the Shabbat Kiddush, page 5 in the prayer book.
Baruch atah
Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ava u'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron le'maseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techilah, l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'charta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikohanim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ava u'ratzon hinkaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ad Shabbat.
Amen.
L'chaim, to life. Motzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Now it's my pleasure to call upon Nicole Skalka. I have the announcements for you. On your phone, just as well.
Thank you. Good Shabbos, everyone. The announcements are short and sweet tonight. First off, thank you, Rabbi Matt, Allison, and Joy, for a beautiful service, as always, and our tech crew, Bruce Lowett and Sal Tave in the back. Our next Shabbat Live band service will be on Friday, June 17th, so please join us. Our annual meeting will take place on Friday, June 24th at 5:45 p.m. and will include a free dinner before services. You're able to attend the meeting either in person or virtually, but the dinner, you got to be here to win. And then following the service, please join us for the Oneg Shabbat in the social hall. So thank you for being here. Out there too.
Thank you so
Good
much,
Shabbos.
Nicole. Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach. I know we at least have some dairy action in the Oneg. I don't think we have blintzes, but kreplach is actually another typical dish for Shavuot, specifically because it has three sides, and there's a lot of threes in Judaism, the patriarchs and so forth. So for our final closing song, figure we go with a Torah theme, Tree of Life, Eitz Chaim Hi. You'll find it right there, Hebrew on top, English on the middle of the English lines. Eitz Chaim Hi lemachzikim babetom eha meushar. Eitz Chaim Hi lemachzikim babetom eha meushar. Shalom, 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 shalom. And now in English, it is a tree of life to those that hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to those that hold fast to it, all of its supporters are happy. Shalom, 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 shalom. And we'll close with our prayer for health and well-being right on the screen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, for the mitzvah and sacred obligation to keep healthy and to promote healthy living for all of those around us. Shabbat Shalom, one and all. Happy Shavuot. Hag Sameach to you all. And join us in the Oneg.